Hey, what's your problem? You have business problems? We have business solutions.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York, Middle Tennessee, it says here. Sounds riveting. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals.
Yeah.
Mostly,
that's right. Yeah. We decided to blow up the What's Your Problem podcast. We, as in me. So this is the first solo episode I've ever done, just kind of announcing what we're doing here. This is the inaugural episode of the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, formerly known as the What's Your Problem Podcast. Big shout out to my buddy there, Mr. Matt Wilson of the Mostly Marketing Podcast. He did the voiceover for the new intro that you just heard. JD, John David Wells, is still a great friend of mine, but I figured Matt needed a crack at it, and we're going to go into his actual his actual voiceover take a little bit later in this episode. It's very funny. He's a very entertaining guy. Why did we do this? Well, first and foremost, it's still going to be a podcast all about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. We're going to be talking about what inspired them. We're going to be talking about maybe the day that they decided to possibly give it all up and walk away and how they overcame that. And of course, if they've got problems, we'll talk about that too. It is a video and audio podcast. You got to check it out at mmtbp.com. Why did I do that? Because Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast is a mouthful, but that is a URL as well. Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.com, otherwise known as mmtbp.com. I am your host, Jim McCarthy with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com and it'sYourShow.co. The very company that produces all these wonderful podcasts. So getting back to why we did this, why I did this. I had lunch with an old mentor and manager, actually a guy I used to work for back in the radio business. We should be having him on probably in January. His name is Dennis Guazdon. And one of the best guys I ever worked for. Always had a door. His door was always open. There for a good word of wisdom, and boy, did he have a lot of it. Never had a complaint about the guy. He was always fair. He was always just. Made sure to take care of his people. I learned a great deal about creating a good, positive, empowering culture from Dennis. He's embarking on his own coaching journey at this point in his life. And we had lunch, and he said, been listening to your podcast for a while and just wondering why do you call it What's Your Problem? And at the time, the impetus of the podcast was to talk about the problems of Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals, because it's always something, right? And that was something that I learned in the car business from a pal of mine, Greg Miles, who came in one day when we were working together and I was just having one of those meltdown days. And he said, man, it's always something. And that still remains true. No matter what you do in life, it's always going to be something. And as my buddy of 25 plus years, Matt Wilson, who's the voice of the intro for the Mostly Middle Tennessee, I'm already screwing up the name, Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. They used to cajole me back in our first radio station, as I was always the guy who said, you know what you should do? And that was just because I would see the problem or something that they were discussing, and I don't know, I would just have a somewhat, maybe not a solution or maybe something different that they could be doing. And I would always just preface it by saying, you know what you should do. So they always just, razzed me about that. So that's how What's Your Problem got started. I've always had ideas for other businesses and what they should do. And I figured I could bring that to light with the What's Your Problem podcast. It dawned on me that there's a lot more people moving to Middle Tennessee, and the What's Your Problem podcast didn't really have that kind of call to action to it, that kind of appeal. So why not put Middle Tennessee in the name? Because at the end of the day, it really is just a business podcast for Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. That's what we talk about. that's why we're switching the name and doing what we're doing. And I called it mostly Middle Tennessee because occasionally we're going to have some people from other parts of the country, maybe even the world. Plus, I like the word mostly. And the same gentleman I've been talking about, Mr. Matt Wilson with the Mostly Marketing Podcast. It used to be known as the Mostly Automotive Marketing Podcast. He's like, man, you stole the name. I'm like, I don't know. Great artists, was a good artist borrow, great artists steal? Is that how the phrasing goes? But I'm totally transparent. Yeah, I like the mostly aspect. It's fun. It shows a little bit of the personality. It's not a stiff podcast. We're gonna have fun with this, kind of like what we've been doing. We're gonna keep the dad joke challenge and all that fun stuff. We're actually gonna make it a challenge and hone in on that aspect of it, because sometimes the jokes get people, sometimes they don't. And Ed Fox is the guy who's just amazing at coming up with dad jokes. You can't stop doing that. So on to the, just to kind of get you a feel of the fun that we'll have. This is a solo episode, just kind of a show bonus and a little behind the scenes peek, if you will, to how a voice session works. Jim talking, take two. How a voice session, oh my gosh, I cannot talk. As I'm talking about how a voice session works, I cannot even get the words out. Matt is not your typical voiceover person, but what he is an amazing talk host. When I first met him, he was about 17 or 18 years old. I think I was about 22 or 23, just getting my feet wet in the radio. Matt was is the son of a longtime morning guy at the station where I started up in Connecticut, the home of rock and roll, I-95, WRKI, Brookfield, Danbury. And Matt did nights when I was coming on board being an intern. And I would listen to him. And he had such a good voice. He had the gift of gab. He had all these things going for him at 17. So you would imagine at 23, 24 years old where I was, just getting into this career of choice that I wanted to get into, thinking to myself, my gosh, I'm way behind. This kid is good. Never mind the fact that it's the family business, but he had that going for him. But he was really good and still is today. And he's done amazing things. He's had his own NASCAR talk show where he started exploring his talk radio chops, if you will, which is tough to hold a topic and create a monologue, kind of like what I'm doing right now, and make something out of nothing and have the right pauses for your delivery in talk radio. So I said, being that he's so creative, he's a fun guy. I've known him over 25 years now. We've gone through a lot of life's ups and downs. Matt, why don't you voice it? Considering that I'm basically ripping off your idea. And he's like, I'm not a voice guy. I said, I don't care. We'll make it work. And we did. And listening to his session was nothing short of hysterical because he is quite the personality. So with that being said, let's get started. This is how typically a session goes. You're just reading the copy. Maybe you're riffing. Maybe you're ad-libbing. Some of the better voiceover talents that do this will do things like that. They'll throw little value adds in there if they feel some sort of a collaboration or ad-lib coming on. Hey, why not? Throw it in. At least read the stuff that's on the paper. Because I've had guys that do that too. They won't read what you actually wrote for them because they don't like it. It's like, well, I'm not paying for you to not like it. Just read the stuff. But the guys that I'd always remembered were the ones who would always throw in value adds, especially for a guy like me that was producing all the stuff behind the scenes for the radio station. So here we go. Here's the Matt Wilson voiceover session for the brand new, rebranded, Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.
I just recorded 10 minutes of me reading this copy, and it wasn't recording. I'm not in the mood anymore.
Well, it's too bad. He's got to be in the mood. That actually does happen. I've done that with clients in video where we finish recording, and all of a sudden I realize I wasn't recording. Not a fun situation to be in, especially when someone's paying you.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals, mostly.
So now he's kind of warming up. He's figuring out what the voice is, and like I said, he's good at voiceovers, but doing this style of voiceover, this announcer, this is the Mostly Middle Tennessee, the stuff that I do and a lot of other guys at Gargle with Razor Blades do. Matt's got a nice baritone to his voice, but he's a personality voice. He's not really kind of like a showcase voice.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals, mostly.
He's warming up.
This is the Mostly Tennessee Business Podcast.
You messed up
a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals, mostly.
And eventually you do mix words up and stuff like that. That's fun.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals, mostly. A podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals, mostly. Mostly.
See, he's giving what we call pickups, trying different variations of the word mostly.
Mostly. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.
This is where he's trying to get his balls to drop. Dare I say, and it's a little bit blue humor, but that's what he's doing. He's going deep.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.
Throwaway.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.
There you go.
I need water. A podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly. Sometimes we'll talk about Marvel movies.
Sometimes we will. He's not wrong.
Mostly.
Because, we've talked about the Marvel thing. If you look behind me, you see the nano gauntlet, for crying out loud.
From the business owners and professionals
This is where he's ad-libbing a little bit.
Business owners media capital of the world. Middle Tennessee. Wherever that is. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.
Now, that's a line that I ad-libbed for his podcast, the Mostly Automotive Marketing, but now it's just Mostly Marketing, where we say from the worldwide headquarters of, marketing knowledge, something like that, whatever he said in there. And, New Milford, Connecticut, wherever that is.
From the business owners advertising media capital. From the business owners capital of the world, Chicago, Illinois, Middle Tennessee. Huh?
See, he's throwing shade at Middle Tennessee right now. Because when you think of entrepreneurs and business owners and professionals, the capitals of those business echelons would be the major markets, your LAs, your Chicagos, New Yorks. But he's gone Middle Tennessee. Although, for entrepreneurship, Middle Tennessee has become quite the hotbed.
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York's.
That's the one we went with. So when I was going through this, I like that take, the Big Apple.
Middle Tennessee, it says here. Okay. Not sure about that.
Riffing, ad-libbing.
A podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Sounds riveting. Yeah. I need some water.
He's getting dry mouth.
Upstairs. Hey, Bradley.
He's calling out to his son.
Bradley, can you bring me a glass of water? I'm
This
really
is
thirsty.
Probably one of the most boring episodes, or maybe exciting episodes. Behind the scenes sneak peeks.
Let him stay home, but I'm sure he's fine.
There we go.
A podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly. Sometimes we'll talk about how I wish I could cuddle with Captain America.
That's something he likes.
Mostly.
Not sure if I want to cuddle with Captain America.
I want to lay in bed with Thor and be the little spoon.
I don't know why he's picking all the dudes, man. I mean, Black Widow is there too.
Media capital of the world.
See, the from the media capital of the world thing is actually a, good artist borrow, great artist steal. So I heard it once on one of Howard Stern's imaging pieces from the top of the Howard Stern building. And that's kind of where that came from.
From the business owner's capital of the world. Middle Tennessee, wherever that is. From Knoxville to Nashville.
Saying he's riffing.
From Knoxville to Nashville.
Not really Knoxville to Nashville. It's more like Cookeville to Jackson, I want to say. And I might even be going too wide for Middle Tennessee on that.
A business podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. As long as you live between Knoxville and Nashville, as long as you live between Nashville and Knoxville.
See, as people who use their voices and mouths for a living, even we get tongue-tied. Happens a lot more than we care to talk about, but it does happen. Even when you're reading stuff that's right in front of you.
For the rest of you, turn it off right now. A podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. I can't wait to check it out. I'm sorry, I'm doing a voiceover. Dude, you put ice in it, and it's my favorite class.
And now he's chastising his kid.
Love you, bro. You need a shower. Your hair is greasy. I'm recording, yeah. Here, actually, you want to help me?
What do you mean?
I'm recording a voiceover. Can you read this? This is the mostly Middle Tennessee. Get closer to the microphone.
What do you want me to say it?
Yeah, just read it.
Okay. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals, mostly.
Nice.
Not bad.
Nice.
Kid's got a future.
I don't know. I'll send it to the guy who makes it. I don't make it.
In terms of making it,
Yeah,
that's
do it
what he's
one more
talking
time.
about.
And say, take it from me.
He's talking about me.
I'm a business owner.
He's having his kid ad-lib now.
Here, let me retype it. This.
What the heck?
Hi, I'm almost 10.
He's writing copy for his child to say,
Oh, I can't type.
for those value adds, sometimes they might work.
A lot about business.
I don't.
And then you put this, and then read this after this.
Riveting stuff right here.
So, I do this and then this.
Yeah.
Okay.
You gotta get closer to the
Not bad.
Okay.
Just because it's funny. Go for
Fine.
it.
Hi, I'm almost 10,
No,
and I...
not that close. Go ahead. A little farther away.
Hi, I'm almost 10, and I know a lot about business. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. Podcast. A podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals, mostly.
He's almost 10 and knows a lot about business. Okay, you can go upstairs now. Thanks. Love you, bud. Love you, pal. If I need you to do it again, I'll call you down here.
He's a good father.
Go watch SpongeBob. Did you know that he lives in a pineapple under the sea? He lives in a pineapple under the sea. Business owners, professionals.
Pretty sure I told him I would be doing this.
The Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, brought to you by... Wait, this guy has sponsors? Oh, no sponsors on this list.
Working on that.
That makes more sense.
It does make sense right now.
Oh, the heat just came on. That's not convenient at all.
Need it up there. So that's pretty much it. Kind of winds out from there. But a little behind-the-scenes peek of the voiceover session from Matt Wilson talking about the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, just to kind of get things kicked off, so to speak. And a thought popped into my head as I was listening to that, as he was providing value adds into his session, which is something that I do in my voiceover dalliances, I guess you could say, when I'm recording something for a client. Once I get the script on paper and make sure I'm saying what they want me to say, I'll say, hey, here's a series of pickups. that came to mind as I was reading this, and we'll throw them in there. In addition to the multiple takes I give them, because that's a value add as well. Different tempos, speeds, pitches, attitudes, that kind of thing. I'll go through and throw some ad-libs in there, because why not? The guy on the other end, you never know. So I guess that's the purpose of this particular episode. If you had to figure out what your business, your Middle Tennessee business, could do to give more value, add a little bit more to what your client, your customer has already bought, what would that be? You know, little unexpected pleasantries, so to speak. But yeah, give that a little bit of thought, and thanks for following along. As always, we're trying to get to that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal of 10,000 average downloads per episode. So if you know people are moving to Tennessee, which there are a ton of them, literal tons of people moving to Middle Tennessee. People want to move to Nashville. They want to move to Chattanooga, Knoxville, definitely Franklin. Franklin's a hot spot. If you know somebody that's new to town, share the podcast with them. Sometimes we're going to talk, it'll be mostly Middle Tennessee business. Sometimes we'll talk about, goings-on. Goings-ons? Is it going-ons? Goings-on. Little events, things of that nature. So like right now, this will be coming out probably late December. A lot of, New Year's planning and all that stuff. Getting ready for the doldrums of winter and then ultimately spring. A lot of cool things happening then. We'll be talking about that as well. Give us a share, like, rate, review, subscribe. Really do appreciate it. And everything is at mmtbp.com. Or if you really want to torture yourself and put yourself through the ringer, mostly Middle Tennessee businesspodcast.com. Thank you again, Dennis Guazdon, for kind of challenging me on the name. And it really made me think about it, because I don't think you're wrong. Obviously, I went ahead and rebranded the entire thing. So there you go. As far as a solo episode, just talking about random stuff and a little bit of a roadmap. We'll be getting underway with all sorts of Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. If you know somebody who is good, would be a good candidate to be on the podcast, send them our way. Send them our way by all means. Thanks for tuning in. Again, hit us up, like, subscribe, rate, review at mmtbp.com. Thanks.